In 2024, most American or British shows that are broadcast in Canada or come under either a syndication, what do you call, distribution, or reflect the fact that the movies or shows can be shown in Canada off network, like not in the Big Five or not from the most of the major streaming in the States. But back in the 70s, it was a complete different game. But today we're talking about a little bit of history of the biggest syndication battle of the 1970s is the creators, the Andersons of Space 1999, how they got it on UK TV and then into the States. Now, the show obviously a big hit with Mark Landau, Barbara Bain, Barry Morrison, her first season, Catherine Schell, one of the most beautiful actresses of her era, of any era, had a big draw, ITC Entertainment. Now, ITV, excuse me. Now, the series premiered in September 75 on the ITV network in UK, but was not broadcast nationally at the same time. This remained the case until a repeat airing on BBC's 2 in 1998. There were two seasons, of course. Most ITV regions, including Yorkshire, Grampian, Ulster, Scottish, Border, ATV, and Tyne-Tees, premiered the series on Thursday, September 4th, 75 at 7 p.m. London Weekend Television and Anglia screened the first episode 2 days later on Saturday, 6 September at 5:50 p.m. The Granada region began showing the series on Friday, September 26, 75, initially at 7:35 before moving it to 6:35 a few weeks later. The HTV region did not begin showing the series until October 75, again in an early Friday evening slot. However, within a few weeks, various stations had moved the series elsewhere in their schedules. The second series premiered on LWT in a non-prime time slot of Saturday, September 4th, 76 at 11:30 a.m., with ATV following on just a few hours later at 5:40 p.m. Westward and Ulster started to screen the series in early 77. Grampian and Tyne-Tees did not screen the series until later in the year. After showing some reruns for the first series on Sunday afternoons in early 77, Granada began showing the second series on April 15th, 1977 on Fridays at 7:30 p.m., but by June the series was moved back to Sunday afternoons. STV started to screen the series on the 9th of April 78 on Saturday afternoons, but HTV did not pick up the second series up until 1984 and then only showed 19 out of the 24 episodes. The last episodes were not screened in Wales until the series was repeated in the 1990s. Southern Television was the other ITV region known not to have broadcast Series 2. Even the successor broadcaster Television South failed to screen any Series 2 episodes when Space 99 was reshown in other ITV regions between 82 and 85. Now, we're not really sure if it was an argument about advertising revenue or sharing revenue or whatever, but some regions of Britain, the show was more popular than others. But if you didn't show all the whole episodes, a lot of key episodes from season 2 describe the what they call the overall "we're not going to go home" plot, and it worked in a certain way and it didn't. Now, in '98, the entire series was reshown on BBC Two, which was the first time the show had been simulcast nationally in the UK. The series concluded happily in 1999. After several reruns in the 2010s on ITV3, followed by runs on the Legend channel and a now defunct Forces TV channel, as well as being added to the BritBox streaming service and also Tubi, the series became available for free in the UK and ITVX from January 2023. Now, in Canada and the States, it was a little bit different. In the States, efforts to sell the series to one of the three networks for the 75 or 76 TV seasons failed. The networks were underestimated a project over which they had no creative control, being presented with 24 completed episodes. Abe Mandel of ITC had secured a handshake agreement with a network executive in 74, but after the man's termination, all these projects were abandoned. Undaunted, Mandel created what he called his own Space 1999 network and sold the completed program into first-run syndication directly to local stations. Now, this mandate was used by the Star Trek Next Generation distributors, more than a decade later. Much of the publicity mentioned a dead staggering £3 million budget per episode. As part of an American production effort, a glossy magazine-sized brochure was produced touting Space 1999 as a $6.5 million series, an allusion to the then popular American program, The $6 Million Man, featuring American stars, American writers, and American directors. In the months leading to the beginning of the Autumn 75 series, Landau and Bain participated in special preview screenings in select cities, and they were quite successful. Landau was said to have personally contacted editors of TV Guide magazine in some markets to secure coverage of Space 1999 in its pages upon learning of ITC's somewhat poor promotional efforts. Now, by September 75, the series had been bought by 155 U.S. stations, while most of these were independent, such as WGN in Chicago, WDRB in Louisville, KHJ in LA, and WPIX in New York. That's a plug. A handful were affiliated with the major networks, such as Charlotte's WSOC, at the time a strong NBC affiliate, and Fresno KFSN TV, at the time a CBS affiliate, and sometimes preempted regular network programming to show episodes of the series. Most U.S. stations broadcast episodes at a weekday evening hour just before prime time or on weekends. ABC affiliate WCVB in Boston, as well as NBC affiliate KPRC in Houston, both aired the first series in prime time, bumping the network shows to other time slots. Now, footage of a spacecraft flying over Moonbase Alpha from the Series 1 episode The Last Enemy was also later reused to depict a future civilization in the Wonder Woman episode Time Bomb, first broadcast on 10 November 78. Now, in August 2018, Cobbin announced it would be airing both series beginning in September of that year. Now, why Martin Landau and Bain were so popular, obviously alumni of Mission Impossible, and of course Martin Landau, known to Alfred Hitchcock fans. Barbara Bain, I think, had won 2 or 3 straight Emmys for Best Actress. So that was a draw as well, like for the areas that were Mission Impossible was the most popular. Now get this, in Canada it was completely different. A public broadcaster took it on. In Canada, CBC Television, again, a public broadcaster like PBS, was a broadcaster of Space 1999 from 75 into the 80s. The first series in 76 was shown regionally on some CBC-owned and operated stations, the airtime varying. In my region, it was 5 p.m., and Hockey Night in Canada was at 8 o'clock. So you do the rough math, you would be showing, I think sometimes you'd be showing Tommy Hunter on Saturday night, so Tommy Hunter would be at 7, and sometimes you show it on Sunday, not Space 1999, but Tommy Hunter, but you can see my gist. Now, with the start of the second series in September 76, CBC upgraded Space 1999 to full network status, airing its Saturdays on all CBC-owned and operated stations, with affiliated, privately owned stations such as CHSJ in New Brunswick, also offering the show on Saturdays. Most of the country saw Space 1999 at 5 p.m. on Saturdays, a notable exception being the Atlantic provinces, in which it was broadcast at 6 or 6:30 p.m., but that's just a time snap style. So technically it was prime time, or as in the case of the summers, sometime earlier in the afternoon to accommodate live sports coverage, the airing of which crossed into or totally over the usual Space 1999 airtime. So they would show Space 1999 before the game of the week or curling or whatever. Now, after the 77 broadcast year, in which the second series eps were run and rerun, the show's ratings were sufficiently high for CBC Television to give the first series a full network airing, and with further repeats from 77 to 78. In the French language, CBC Radio Canada showed Cosmos 1999 several times, both series between 75 and 80, first on Mondays, 75-76, then on Saturdays, 76-77, then on Mondays in 79, and finally on Wednesdays 79-80, to fill various time slots in the off-season, no Expo or Habs or Toronto games. The series fared admirably on CBC Television Canada, airing in English in a family viewing period, late Saturday afternoons before hockey broadcasts, with a mostly undisrupted run and rerun of all 24 episodes from September 76 to September 77. The French version was also broadcast in early evenings on Saturdays. Ratings were sufficient for a full additional year's transmission of Year 1 on the English CBC Saturday programming slot in 77 and 78. I were receiving ratings of 1 to 3 million per episode. It was very, very popular. Episodes of both Year 1 and Year 2 were repeated regionally in Canada in English and French through the early and mid-1980s, but YTV Canada broadcast both series with reportedly good ratings from 90 to 92 and a late Saturday afternoon airtime closely matching that of the CBC English network in the 1970s. Now, I think in certain days it was backed with either single or double episodes of Red Dwarf. So we had Red Dwarf right after Space 1999. Now, the full network English CBC airing began with the season opener Breakaway on September 11, 1976. Then The Men Are From Mortimorph, the year 2 opener, on 18 September. The Exiles, Journey to Where, the Tabor, and New Adam, New Eve followed respectively in the subsequent weeks. Next were The Mark of Arcanon, Brian the Brain, The Rules of Luton, the ABC Chrysalis, Catacombs of the Moon, and Seed of Destruction. Seed of Destruction aired on 27 November, and then with December, there came a month of repeats. And after preemption for New Year's Day sports, new episodes returned, airing on 8 January 1977 with A Matter of Balance, followed by The Beta Cloud, One Moment of Humanity, the Lambda Factor, All That Glisters, and the Sion Spectre. The two-part episode, The Bringers of Wonder, was shown on 19 and 26 February with a disclaimer due to severe, what they call horror themes. The Lambda Factor, All That Glisters, and the Sion Spectre were favorites, but Bringers of Wonder did really good ratings. From then it was Dorzak, The Immunity Syndrome, Devil's Planet, and the Dorcons, which followed in March. Space Wharf would be not shown until May 21st, after many weeks of repeats. By September 10, 1977, except for The Exiles, all of the second series episodes have been repeated. And thereafter, a 77-78 run of first series episodes began with War Games on 17th of September. And I think the popularity due was to Barry Moore's being Canadian or English Canadian. Now, shown as Italy as Spazio 1999, it also was in Argentina, Uruguay, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, again Francophone Canada, and France as Cosmos 99, Denmark as Main Base Alpha, Brazil and Portugal as Espaço 1999, Germany as Bundebasis Alpha 1, Sweden as Manbas Alpha, Poland as Cosmos 1999, Finland as Arusiamama Alpha, Greece as I can't do the Greek because like Spock, Hungary as Alpha Holzbais, Spain, Chile, Venezuela, and Colombia as Espacio 1999, Mexico as Adicia 99, as well as Iran, Turkey, South Africa, Alpha 1999, dubbed in Afrikaans in certain territories. The series was also broadcast in English in the Netherlands, Belgium, New Zealand, and Australia. In Finland, the first series was originally aired by the commercial MTV, Channel 76, but it was withdrawn after a couple of episodes on demand of the National Program Board, as the show was considered too brutal and horrifying. The same thing happened when MTV tried to air the second season in 78. The complete show wasn't seen in Finland until 96-97, when a small local channel, TV Tampere, aired it. Since then, it aired on TV in 2000 and 2001, and later on MTV3 Sci-Fi in 2008. Now, fan and critic responses to the new series varied. Some missed the mystical plot lines, feature film ambience, and the Britishness of the first series. Others said they enjoyed the new characters, down-to-earth characterizations, and action. Comparisons with Star Trek were used by both camps to show how the series had either been saved or destroyed by the format change. Season 1 having the cold opening where you're getting moments from the episode before it even aired. Second year, more traditional. Reviewing the show as a whole, science fiction historian John Clute described Space 1999 as visually splendid, which it is, but criticized what he regarded as the show's mediocre acting and rotten scripts. Well, who's the fault of that? Barbara Bain, maybe? Or just the fact he had to write for Barbara Bain? Anyway, the whole series became bigger than Star Trek in Canada, and I tell you why. Because Star Trek was on cable coming into Canada. Not everybody in Canada had cable. Up until CBC6 from Montreal, to not say compete, but to replace Space in 1999. When Space 1999 went off, I think CBC6 in Montreal was showing it early Sunday mornings. So you got to understand this. When Star Trek The Next Generation came into Canada, it was shown on CBC before hockey. But what broke through for Star Trek, and Patrick Stewart should send money to CBC thanking them, because all the border states to CBC were watching Star Trek, and some of those areas never had Star Trek, just like they never had Space 1999. So there's a cosmic link, no pun intended, to Space 1999 to to Star Trek. And only a couple of actors from Space 1999 appeared on Star Trek The Next Generation. No Barbara Bain, no Barry Morse, no Catherine Schell. One of the pilots there, the Australian pilot, showed up in the episode where he gets killed, and it was a Wesley and the captain character kind of talking about the future they're going to have in their own lives. But I think they left money on the table. If you would have had a Space 1999 alumni as a regular character on Star Trek, I think it would have been a lot better. You're lucky Canada's here as a test drive, as we say, because I don't think Star Trek Next Generation would have worked were it not for Space 1999. Because the U.S. there, the South didn't really cover it, and the North didn't really take it on because there was too much college football, hockey, regional baseball, and the super stations, as we see in 2024 in Canada States, didn't exist back then because it was piecemeal. Because basically, whatever you're going to put on to fit it. And I think I don't know how much of Space 1999 was pre-sold, and Vince McMahon must have looked at that too, if you know what I'm saying. How we work the syndication package, because it all works together. But how Space 99 was put together was very piecemeal. But if we're still talking about it 50 years later, they must have done something right. So that's a little story about the history on television, the distribution of Space 1999. If you like what we're doing here, we're a TV Vintage podcast. Let us know with a like, comment, subscribe, or share. And in the words of Barry Morris, when I first met him in Dalhousie, New Brunswick, 1980, it was a great show and I got paid well. And I think that sums it up. Thanks for listening. Bye.